So on behalf of the district trio with Stella and myself, Valinda's not on in the moment, we have our presenters for tonight. He is Area West 75 director. He has worked in several productions on television. His first job when he turned 18 was, I believe, at PBS. Is that correct, PJ?
I didn't work at PBS. I did productions for PBS.
For PBS. And so he is our presenter tonight for the session on capturing yourself on video. Please help me welcome, and this is the sign for clapping in the American Sign Language, Mr. CJ Powers.
I've been a part of production since I was a wee lad. So at age 4, believe it or not, I designed my first production. At age 12, I shot my first film. By 18, I was a cinematographer on a CBS documentary, and it went on from there. So I know a little thing or two about film and video. And one of the things I know is that I hate this background behind me. Do you see that? But anyway, the reason I hate it is because it creates this artificial glow. And if I move too much and stuff, the glow waffles. I don't know how else to describe it. Now, for some people, if your room is more balanced and you have a plain wall behind you, oh, look at my hand, it appears and disappears. Can you see my hand appearing and disappearing?
Wow.
Okay.
If this is the afterlife here.
Yeah, there you go.
Ghost. There you go.
So basically what is happening is that the computer is working 10 times harder to put the background in place than what it should be working, because you don't want glitches, you don't want delays in transmission and things like that. So by having a fake background, you're actually hindering your broadcast, and there'll be more jitters and other problems like that. So I put that on to demonstrate what not to do. This morning when I tested it out, there was a greater halo. It was a worse effect, and my face shrank in, and then it walled it out, and then it shrank back in. It was really wild what it was doing, but it was also a brighter day. Right now I have darkness out my window. Of course, you can't see out my window, you just see space. So the actual lighting itself makes a huge difference. One of the things that I was sharing in, I had a session last night as well on this very topic. What I was sharing is that your light placement makes a difference too. For instance, if I say, Alexa, turn off desk. Now you see I'm underlit. Alexa, turn on nightstand. Now you can see I'm lit a little bit better, but it's just a little too far away. Alexa, turn on desk. So now you can see that where the lights are placed, how far away they are from you, makes all the difference in the world as far as how you come across to people. So lighting is key. What I always recommend, have you seen those ring lights or those circle lights that looks like a giant donut because you can see through it? The reason there's a hole there is so the camera, you can put it on the camera like this. Oh, look at my hands disappear. And that way the light's coming at all directions and balancing your face. The way I have it now with a distant light off on my one side this direction and a closer light here, we call this the key and that the fill. When you have lights like that, you get a little bit more of a dramatic effect, a little brighter on this side of the face, a little darker on this side, brings a little bit of interest into the image. However, if it's too stark of a difference, it doesn't work for Zoom video. So that's why those ring lights are so good, because they'll bring a balanced look to your face and people will be able to see it quite well. So that's the condensed version of what you can do with lighting. Now with audio, you're familiar with headsets like this, and you're familiar with people talking on speaker systems. But what you see a lot of pros doing these days, and my sample is
Hey, Tommy.
You have these nifty little earpieces. This is what you see a lot of pros doing now. In fact, in Hollywood, they're very common. And the reason for it is because it's not as noticeable. If any of you have seen the Colbert Show, for instance, he's using these right now on his at-home version. And these are Bluetooth. Now, the other thing that people use are little lapel mics. Of course, you can't see me hold. I'll have to hold it in front of my face, otherwise it disappears in the background. Look at that. That's another reason you don't like those backgrounds, because sometimes it makes things disappear, like the thing you're trying to show. A lapel mic like this works real well because you just clip it onto your t-shirt or your shirt or your jacket or whatever it is that you have. It has a transmitter pack. And this goes to another unit that looks the same. The only difference is it has a little antenna coming out of it, and it plugs directly into your computer. The key there is that while that gives your voice a really, really nice sound, you have to deal with your a small earpiece as a separate feature, and your computer can handle that. You can do audio separate from headphones, so you can set that way. Now, I don't recommend this just because you have to focus on two different things, but the key is that you have that option. And then the other option, of course, is to go with real headsets. Another thing that people use is their podcast microphone. And that way you have a pee-popping screen so that you can speak more clearly. And again, this can integrate into your computer very quickly. Most of them are USB connectors. So it looks like a regular USB connector. You plug it straight into your computer. The headphone can plug into the base of the mic, and both audio tracks, both input and the output go into the computer in the same fashion, and you can control it very easily. Now, the key with this, of course, is that you get the richest possible sound. This particular mic has 4 different settings because there's actually 4 microphones built into this one. That's why it looks a little bit larger than normal. Cardioid is what I'm using at this point, where I'm talking straight across into the microphone for the richest sound. And of course, I'm not demonstrating the sound because I'm still on this little white piece, because clearly this thing isn't allowing me to change back and forth so you can hear the differences. However, that gives you an idea, and being ideal for a podcast as well. You can use it for webinars or anything else. And I have it on an extension arm, which is disappearing into the background. So I can easily move it in and out of the way as necessary. Now, you'll notice that I'm fairly balanced on the screen. You can see me fairly well. You have to understand that the cameras on this technology are much wider angled, and therefore, if you're not positioned properly, you look distorted. Typically, if you're taking a picture with an SLR camera, you want a 100 millimeter to about 135 millimeter lens for you to look perfect as far as your face goes. No distortion whatsoever. But you'll see a lot of people running around with 200 millimeter lenses and also 50 millimeter lenses, or zooms that take them anywhere in between. And you'll go in and out of distortion. And sometimes you'll look at a picture and say, wow, that photographer is really good. Well, that's because they knew what the focal point needed to be for the shot that they were taking. If they're moving in really, really close, they gotta go a little wider. If they're moving far out, they gotta go in a little closer, and so on. So with like a major motion picture, totally different sets of lenses. A 50 millimeter is a good close-up lens, but with the DSLR, again, I like between 100 and 135 millimeter. When it comes to computer technology, they're all different variations of wide angle. So you have a lot of distortion that's happening. You want to avoid it. And what you see set up right now, where I'm looking straight at you, and it's just slightly under my eye level, the camera. This is about as best of an image as I'm going to get. Now, I'll show you what most people do, and then you can tell me which camera you liked better. Do you like this better, or do you like this better?
First
Now, now, believe it or not, this is what I see a lot. In fact, there's 3 of you on here that I can see immediately that have this exact same shot. Now, there's also this guy here, and it's because I can see fine, but you can't necessarily see me fine. The other thing is to consider is, what if, I'm going to set this back the way I normally have it, so I look halfway decent. Now, how about if I'm talking to you like this? How does this look to you? This looks a little weird, doesn't it? And the reason is because my head is tilted down so I can see the image on the computer screen instead of looking at the lens while I'm talking to you. Do you see how significantly different that looks? That is probably the biggest difference in between a professional speaker and an amateur speaker. Plus, because of the wide angle lens, just because I've tipped my head, the image is automatically distorting my head, and now my top of my head looks much bigger than the rest of my face. By doing this, I look normal again. And all I did was move my eyes about 8 inches between the camera and looking at the picture. So whenever, excuse me. So whenever you're giving a presentation, you want to make sure that you're looking at the people, not on their pictures, but looking into your camera. Now, let's all admit, looking at a camera is a weird feeling at first. I mean, it is a bizarre feeling. So you have to get used to it. Now, for my computer, I don't know if yours is this way or it's just the make that I have a green dot right next to the lens, so I know if the camera is on me or not. So I just focus on that green dot and I pretend it's your eyes. So if I want to look right into your eyes and talk to you, I can do that. If I go to shift my position at all, I can still be looking at your eyes, and no matter where I shift, you can still think I'm looking at you because I'm looking at that dot. But the moment I shift without looking at the dot, you can tell I am not looking at you at all. Now, the funny thing, in reality, I'm not looking at you at all no matter what, because I'm looking at the dot and I can't see you. Out of my peripheral vision, I can kind of see your images. I can see some of you nodding your head in agreement and things like that. But for the most part, I'm just trusting that how I'm coming across is what I've been taught and it works.